pleasure being with you, and thank you for everybody that has tuned in, both here and then, we got the latest people viewing on the YouTubes and such like that, doing good numbers, they would say, in the sales pit.
That was an amazing sentence you put together there.
It's Friday.
Hey, I loved it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We just had a discussion on sentence structure and enunciating, and yours was top-notch.
Talk good, me do. Radio
best goodly you are.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. How about somebody who's far more articulate than we are? KTAR legal analyst is Barry Markson. Barry joins us because, Barry, there have been a couple of big stories out of the Supreme Court. Let's start with, first of all, the Supreme Court decides not to hear Trump's appeal to them that he not be sentenced. So all of a sudden he got sentenced. What do we make of this?
Yeah, so the Supreme Court made the decision 5-4 to allow the sentencing to go forward, which upset Trump. But I think they followed the law there. I think that was the appropriate response. And really what we're going to take from that is, at least with Justice Roberts and Justice Amy Coney Barrett and the liberal justices, they're not going to extend that presidential immunity that we just now learned about in July. They're not going to extend it to things like this. So that's I think it's educational for us going forward. And then Trump was sentenced today, and he was sentenced to what's called an unconditional discharge, which is a very rare sentence. You never see that. Even at its best, people are usually given kind of a conditional discharge, which is, hey, we're going to let you go without any punishment, but as long as you don't commit any other crimes. Or you probably heard about people who go through a thing where they go a year without having another crime and their record is cleared, things like that. This is even lower than that. It doesn't have any conditions. There's nothing there. No jail, no fines, no parole officer, no nothing. He's free to go, but he is now formally a convicted felon.
KTAR News legal analyst Barry Markson joins us here. Barry, how does this negatively impact President-elect Trump then? You mentioned no conditions, no jail. So is it just the optics of it all?
Yeah, look, Trump is always, even before he was president or in the politics at all, he was always concerned about running afoul of the law. He would brush up against it a lot as a developer in New York, in Atlantic City, things like that. But that was something he always wanted to avoid. And now he's a felon. I mean, this will be in the first couple of lines of his obituary. He will go in history as the first U.S. president ever to take office as a convicted felon. I mean, nobody wants that. So from a personal standpoint, he doesn't like it. But that said, from a practical standpoint, it's really nothing. He's convicted, but he's free to go, and there's no ramification from that other than the fact that he is now a felon. So it isn't going to affect him as president, but when he's no longer president, things like getting a visa in another country, things that we, if you're a felon, you appreciate there's things you can't do. Those things will now affect Trump. There are states he wouldn't be able to vote in, including Florida, by the way. So there's issues that he will live with after his presidency, but as president, it will have no effect at all.
Barry Markson is our KTAR legal analyst. Barry, I hear what you're saying, but I feel like it's a whole lot different for a billionaire former president than it would be for a Chris or a Joe or a Barry. I mean, if we want to get a visa, we could probably still get that. We might have issues getting that visa. President-elect Trump is not going to have an issue getting a visa just about anywhere he wants to go, is he? I mean, who's going to do that? That sounds like it creates an international incident.
Well, certainly not as president. He doesn't need a visa, and he's not going to have any issue for the next 4 years. What I was speaking of is when he's out, when he leaves office in 4 years, and then he wants to go somewhere, there may be issues. There's countries that have rules in place. Are they going to make exceptions for former U.S. president? Most likely. I don't think he's going to be barred from any countries, but it's just something he's going to have to deal with. It's on that record. So you're right, though, Chris. It's a different. I'll call it a different level of justice. I don't know if it's a different justice system, but Trump throughout this whole criminal process has really been treated much, much more leniently than any other defendant ever would, including just the contempt issues, the sanctions, the things he was saying about the judge and the prosecutors, and that would have put any one of us in jail for contempt. And Trump didn't have that happen to him. So he has the bully pulpit, he has the fame, he has the political power, and he used that to his advantage often here. But he couldn't get away from this formal sentencing, and now forever a convicted felon.
KTAR News legal analyst Barry Markson joins us talking about President Trump and what's been going on with him lately. Barry, what options did the judge have in Trump's case at this point? We know what happened to him. What other options did the judge have?
Well, any other defendant, the options would have included potential jail time or prison time. It could have included a fine. It could have included probation and supervisory follow-up. But as a president, their hands were tied. It's important to note that this sentence, this unconditional release, was requested by the prosecutor's office. So the prosecutors and the judge both recognized that under the law, under that Supreme Court decision, given the president some level of immunity, there really was no other option. This was all they could do. So they did it to really kind of honor the system, to honor the jury that sat through that trial, to bring some end to it. But really, they had no other choice.
Barry Markson is our KTAR legal analyst. Barry, let's flip gears here. The Supreme Court heard another case, and this one originally, Trump 45 was all out to ban TikTok because of China's influence. And now Trump 47 says, wait a minute, let's just hold off on banning them. The Supreme Court heard that case this morning. What did it sound like? What, if you're reading the tea leaves in those oral arguments about whether or not that ban goes through on the 19th, what did it sound like?
It was, if you listen to how the questions that were being asked, I would venture a guess that the Supreme Court is going to affirm the lower court's decision, which is to say that the statute that the law that Congress passed and President Biden signed banning TikTok is constitutional. That there's a compelling state interest in our national security in banning TikTok. So I expect they're going to let that go. That said, anybody who tries to be a prognosticator of Supreme Court decisions based on oral argument is oftentimes going to be wrong. So you don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do. It's also important to note that Trump and his people filed an amicus brief asking the court to postpone their decision or to kind of leave it to him because he can come in and fix it and negotiate a better outcome. I don't know that they're going to do that. There'd be no precedent for that. He is not president yet. So I don't think they're going to go with that. But again, this Supreme Court, I don't know. The deadline, the law, when TikTok is supposed to shut down under that law, is January 19th. It's the day before Trump takes office. So unless the Supreme Court does something to stay that law or to block it, TikTok will legally have to shut down on the 19th.
KTAR News legal analyst Barry Markson with us. Barry, I've heard there's lots of loopholes, so many that this is described like Swiss cheese, that there would be numerous ways that people could continue to use TikTok. So what if they ban the app and people keep using it? Is there a way that they can actually ban it? And will they actually ban it and be able to prohibit use?
Well, even if the Supreme Court upholds the law banning it, there are ways to keep it open for some time longer. So the TikTok owners could say, we're taking substantial steps to sell it to a non-Chinese owner, and the law allows for them to do that and to keep it operating during that time period. There are now people in the United States, wealthy people, who are saying they want to purchase TikTok. So those options exist if the Chinese company decides they want to sell it. As far as the workaround and things that you're describing, Chris, there's not much you can do about that, right? I mean, we all have heard of the sports betting apps that are illegal in the United States, and then many folks were finding ways to bet in those from the United States, even though it's illegal. So there's always workarounds. There's always technical workarounds. You could do TikTok from other countries using a VPN. I mean, there's things you can do. I'm the last person to talk about tech options, but you're right. If people really want to use TikTok, they can use it. But the fact is, of the hundreds of millions of Americans that use TikTok, I don't know what percentage of them will take those steps. I think a lot of them, if they can't use the app, they'll just go find something else to use.
All right, KTAR legal analyst Barry Markson. Barry, thank you for the update. It's good to hear the lowdown from a lawyer's mouth. All right, enjoy your weekend, my friend.
Thanks for watching the Chris and Joe Show. Click to see more from Chris and Joe, and tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.